thank you to Clarksville homeschoolers, pro-life homeschoolers. How awesome is that? Two of my favorite groups. I'm a homeschool student, I'm pro-life. I'm so glad that they're here, and we really appreciate you guys coming out and helping us. It's really awesome to have young voices. You know, the pro-life generation, that's this generation, you know. We don't want this to continue anymore, so it's awesome to have young people together speaking out. Speaking of young pro-life voices, this next woman, and I'm already getting emotional just thinking about her. You may have seen her. I did not know her personally until this week. I had only known her through a viral video that I had seen and I had shared. It's a very pro-life message. A woman who chose life for her son, chose to love her son, chose to be a good mother to her son against all odds. Her message just absolutely impacted so many people, and when I heard her name, I was like, what? No, she's not. She's in Tennessee? What? Are you serious? Like, I got a hold of her, she said she'd come speak, and I was just ecstatic. I mean, starstruck, you know, to see this woman who I had watched on the computer so many times and told so many people about and said, like, look at this is a mom. You know, this is love. This is what we should be training our young women to do, to raise children, not to abort them. So I'm really glad that she's here, and you know, you guys should all definitely try and get a chance to get to know her and talk to her if you can. So please welcome Lacey Buchanan.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you for having me today. My name is Lacey Buchanan, and you'll see right over here these two handsome hunks that I'm standing with are my boys, Christian and Chandler. Christian is 4 years old, Chandler is 2. And my pro-life journey started February 18th, 2011. And that was the day that Christian was born, and it was a day that rocked our world. We got one of those things that no parent ever wants to hear, a prenatal diagnosis. And we knew something was going to be wrong, but what we didn't know is that Christian was even going to live. Thankfully, when he was born, lots of prayer, lots of good doctors, he immediately began breathing on his own, and we knew that he was going to be okay. And we knew that God had big plans for his life. And so we spent a lot of time in NICUs, doctor's appointments, surgeries, all the things that no parent ever wants to dream about, or when you have a baby, it's just not what you picture. And our hearts were broken for our son for having to go through these things. And what was more heartbreaking for us was the reaction that we got from other people. We would be walking down the street and people would stare or whisper behind our backs. People would even come up to me and ask, what's wrong with that baby? What did you do in your pregnancy? What drugs did you take? And we knew that if we could have done anything in the world to take away his disability, we would have done it. But since we couldn't do that, the next best thing that we could do was love him and give him an amazing life. And that's what we were trying to do. And one day in particular, somebody got really brave with me and decided to tell me how she really felt. And her opinion was that I was a pathetic excuse for a mother because I didn't abort Christian. Her reasoning was that he was going to live a life of suffering and torment, and his life was going to be valueless and worthless. And it would have been the compassionate thing to do to abort him so that he wouldn't have to live in this world. That prenatal diagnosis that we got, it changed a lot about our lives. We were a young couple. We were a working family, just living the American dream, and it changed a lot of things. We had to get used to hospitals and doctor's appointments and feeding tubes and medical equipment. We had to do a lot of things that were new, and a lot of things changed. But one thing that did not change when we got that prenatal diagnosis was the love for our child, or the fact that he was our child.
Amen.
Our desire to give him the best life possible before the prenatal diagnosis did not change after the prenatal diagnosis. Our desire to protect him and to fight for him, it did change. It got stronger after the prenatal diagnosis. You see, abortion was never an option for us. It was never even thought about, because that diagnosis didn't change the fact that Christian was a living human being and that he was our child. Now, there's some statistics that are thrown around, and I've done a little bit of research before I came. And the best number that I could find was a 2012 publication of a magazine called Prenatal Diagnosis, and it calculated the weighted mean across the United States of 67% termination rate following the diagnosis of Down syndrome only. 67% of prenatal diagnoses of Down syndrome end in abortion. This doesn't include any other birth defect that might be diagnosed, any other prenatal diagnosis, Down syndrome only. And this is just our best guess because we're not even allowed to track the numbers. Whatever that statistic is, it's too high. Planned Parenthood, they betray women when they tell them that it's the compassionate thing to do to end a life because of a prenatal diagnosis. You can look at Christian right there and see living proof. There is nothing pathetic. There is nothing about him that is suffering. Christian lives an amazing life. He's happy, he's joyful, and let me tell you what, at 4 years old, he's rocking the world. Planned Parenthood wants to tell women that it would prevent a life of suffering. I see no suffering. I see a spoiled, rotten little boy. Compassion is not aborting a child. Compassion is loving and fighting for your child and standing by them no matter what the prenatal diagnosis says.
That's right.
The truth is that a disability can strike at any time. It doesn't have to be prenatal.
No.
And that's just something that we have to deal with and move on.
That's right.
A disability is not the end of the world. I can attest to that. So I just want to end by paraphrasing a disability rights activist. The only thing that a prenatal diagnosis can provide is a first impression of who a child will be. Making such a radical decision as to end the life of a child based on a first impression is a horrible and violent form of discrimination, and it has no place in an American society that is committed to ending discrimination. It is time that we defund Planned Parenthood and their discriminatory ways against children like my son and against children in general. Thank you.
Amen.